So today I'm going to tell you the story of how I was cheated on. Bit of a crazy story, bit of a long story. So how do you even start something like this? I guess you just start from the beginning. I used to work at a grocery store. While I was there, I was specifically going through a period of celibacy for 1 year. And I was flirting with people while I was working there. It was a really fun work environment. I really loved my coworkers. And there was a guy that was interested in me, but I didn't really like him. There was another guy there who I thought was really cute though. And I just remember wishing that guy's so cute. He would never be interested in me, but I wish he was. And then, I don't know, like a few weeks later, one of my other coworkers told me that guy that I thought was cute actually thought I was cute and, wanted to go on a date. And I was like, wait, what? And it was weird because at the time, my Spanish wasn't very good. And the guy that I liked, who would later become my husband, he didn't speak any English. So I was like, why would he be into me? Like, we don't speak the same language. Literally, the only reason he could possibly be into me is to have sex. And I'm celibate. I'm not having sex with anybody right now. So no. Even though I thought he was very cute. But he wrote me a note. He wrote me this love letter basically saying that he thought I, was beautiful and that any guy would be lucky to have me. I don't know, just all this really sweet stuff. At first, I saw the letter and I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, this is too much. But then I was talking it over with a few of my friends. And I was like, actually, this is a lot of effort. Like, this guy put in a lot of effort. This is really sweet. I think he's attractive and he's nice and he's funny. I should give him a chance. So my husband and I went on our first date. We were texting back and forth. I think he used to send me like funny little memes, like very Spanish memes, the kind with like lots of glitter and like buenos dias. And it was really cute. It was really sweet. He was a sweet guy. So for our first date, I decided to do a double date. So I brought my best friend and he actually brought another girl, which probably should have been a red flag to me, but it wasn't at the time. I thought it was kind of weird, but I try to think the best in people, and that's probably where this situation went wrong. But whatever, he brought another girl. He did show up late to the movie, and we didn't really talk or anything, but it's a movie, like how you can't talk a lot because, it's a movie. And then I think they left like right after the movie was over, so it was a bit of not a good date. But then we went out on a second date, and our second date, I think it was also to a movie, and I don't remember what time it was, but I remember that he was 2 hours late. Now, I was really feeling for him at this point. For context, he is an immigrant. He didn't speak a lot of English, and he had only been in the US for like less than a year. I remember him saying he was trying to catch a taxi, and I remember thinking like, well, in our area, we don't really have taxis. Like, Uber wasn't very big then, and maybe he's just confused. Maybe he really just doesn't know how the US works. So, I made an excuse for him. I was like, whatever. I was waiting for him for a while, like did my makeup. I got all cute. He finally showed up, and when he did come, went to the movie, he was a gentleman. He was really sweet. And then on the way back, we connected. We were talking a lot. I specifically remember him telling me that he was afraid of frogs. And I had never heard the word for frog in Spanish before. So I was like learning new words, and we were communicating in Spanish and English. And it was just a really good experience. I felt really good about it afterwards. So I decided to continue dating him. At that point in time, we weren't exclusive, and I was still like in my year of celibacy had ended, but I still wasn't interested in dating anyone seriously because I was in college and I was planning on transferring. I went to community college. I was planning on transferring to another school shortly, like within the next year. And so I didn't want to get serious with anybody and then, have to leave or be worried about like where I was going to transfer to, be limited to a certain geography or place based on who I was dating. So we were keeping it casual, but he made it very clear early on that he did not want things to be casual. Like, he wanted to date me and he didn't want anybody else to date me. And if I didn't want that, then he didn't want to be with me. And, I went to a couple of parties. I hooked up with a couple of other guys when we were in this like uncommitted phase, but I liked him. He was giving me a lot of attention. He was giving me a lot of love. He was a really cool, interesting guy. He was super sweet. He was super hard worker. That's very attractive to me, somebody who works really hard. And I love that about him. And I really wanted to get to know him more. And so I decided that, we could, be exclusive. So we had a great first couple of months, but in hindsight, we really didn't. There were so many red flags and I ignored them all. So just overall, he was a really sweet guy. He would text me a lot and send me lots of messages and just pay attention to me. And I really loved that. I love connecting with other people and I love having like really deep friendships and bonds. So getting that early on was really special to me. And it kind of hooked me in. But there were some red flags. So one of them was that he was a day drinker. So one of the problems is that he was working at nighttime. And so he worked the night shift. And that's how we met. Like, I used to work the late shift and then he would work the overnight shift and our shifts would overlap. So then he would get off work and he would go like drink basically. And when he got off work, like that was during the day. It was like in the morning or in the afternoon. Like, it was a strange time to be drinking. And I always felt weird about it, but like everybody's different, whatever. No big deal. Like, I don't mind if people drink. I don't judge people for drinking. I'm not like straight edge or anything, but, just something felt off about his drinking. Like, it felt like it was too frequent. I remember we went to a liquor store once and he just like, I was driving, but he just like drank liquor in the car. Like he got one of those mini bottles and drank the whole thing straight up in the car. It wasn't even like for enjoyment. It felt like, I think, knowing what I know now, it was for anxiety because I think he has a lot of social anxiety and he wanted to be like cool, calm, relaxed. And he does that by drinking. And, at the time he wanted to impress me. He wanted, to be chill while we were hanging out. So drinking was a way that he could kind of cope with that. But there are a lot of alcoholics in my family, and I was very wary of that behavior. And, even if somebody isn't an alcoholic, just having a dependency on alcohol in a way like you can't do other things without it, that bothers me. And I totally get that, it would be okay for someone else, but for me, that was like a boundary. So I told him about my concern with the alcohol. He also had like gotten drunk a few other times, and he's the kind of person where like if he drinks, he gets wasted, and he's also like a really emotional drunk. So he would either like get really angry or cry a lot. And in the beginning, I thought it was like him being vulnerable, but as time went on, it was like, this isn't cute anymore. But yeah, so there were a couple of episodes in the beginning where he was drinking during the day, and that felt concerning to me. Then, we're getting to know each other as couples do. We're having the cutesy times, lots of cuddling. We had some like shows that we shared together. He taught me about his culture. I taught him about mine. We were having a lot of fun. I had a really great time in the beginning, despite some of these red flags. We were talking about his mom one day, and he was telling me that his mom lives in his country. And, that felt really sad to me. I was sorry to hear that. Little did I know, I found out a few months later that he actually lied about that. His mom didn't live in his country. His mom lived here in the United States, and he actually had lived with her for the first few months after he moved to the US. And I found out later, like after he had moved out of his mom's house and gotten his own place, I found out that she was here. But it was strange to me because he was always coming over my place and like spending a lot of time at my place, and I wanted to balance it out. I wanted to come over his place too. And he always said no. And in retrospect, he always said no because he was living with his mom, and, you know, he was lying about her even, you know, being in existence, whatever. He gave me some story later about how he was talking about his grandma, who is like a mother figure for him, and how he grew up with his mom and his grandma, and he grew up thinking that his mom was his aunt, which it may or may not be true. I mean, it's probably true, but it doesn't matter. He shouldn't have lied about something so important, right? And lying from the beginning was a huge red flag. Over time, we had some arguments, but I really liked him, and he really liked me, and we were committed to each other, and that was clear from the beginning that he wanted to be in a relationship with me. He was serious, and he wanted to get married. I never wanted to get married. Like from a young age, I knew that like marriage really wasn't for me, and I would rather just like be in a long-term relationship with somebody where you've been dating for a long time, you have kids, and then maybe you just like, fuck it, you get married one day and it's no big deal. But like having a big wedding and the ceremony of it was just not for me. So when we were talking about the idea of getting married, it was kind of like, okay, sure, whatever. Like, I love you, you love me. Why not? Like, I don't really want to get married, but this is really important to you, and we love each other. Like, let's just do it. And so we had a little wedding at the courthouse. Didn't tell my family about it because he was an immigrant. My mom is not really supportive of immigrants. My brother had been married to an immigrant in the past, and he had gotten divorced. And my mom was like really not happy about that whole situation. And I was young, and I didn't want judgment. I didn't want to hear it from my family. I just wanted their support. So I just decided to not tell anyone. And I was 20 or 21. I was either 20 or 21. And, you know, we just got married about 8 months after we got together. By that time we were already like saying, I love you. He was the one to tell me that he loved me first. Everything indicated to me that he was very committed to me and our relationship, and that I was very special and important to him. Yeah, so we had a really low-key ceremony at the courthouse. Nobody but the two of us. It was really sweet. Oh, I had decided for whatever reason that I wanted to just use like a disposable camera and have that experience, but I didn't use the flash. And so we have basically no photos from our wedding other than this like a couple of really like badly exposed ones. But yeah, so we got married. We got married and nobody knew about it. After we got married, we didn't immediately move in together because, I had a lease at my apartment. We just like needed some time to figure out some logistical things. And, we were both happy living apart. So it wasn't a big deal. But a few months after we got married, we did move in together. We rented a room at my friend's place, who also worked at the same grocery store. So it was like a full house basically of everybody working at the grocery store. And we eventually started living together. I'm a pretty like understanding person, and I try to think of things from other people's perspectives. And when you're living with somebody, that's obviously really important. There was one big difference between us in terms of like living together, and that was keeping a clean space. And before we lived together, I had actually cleaned up his space a few times for him, like as a gift, like an act of service type of showing love thing. And when we first met, he was working 2 jobs. So he was like super busy. He was never sleeping. He was always tired, and his space kind of suffered because of that. So a lot of the problems that we had in the beginning, I kind of attributed to him working all the time, being super stressed, being sleep deprived. And I just thought, like if he stops working so much, things will get better. And so when we finally moved in together and he quit his second job and he just did like the one job at the grocery store, things, of course, did not get better. And that was when our problems began, in my mind. But from his perspective, that is not the case. Ooh, messy. A couple of things that we fought about a lot. One, cleanliness. Like, I'm a very clean, organized person. I like my space to be cleaned. I don't like to have a lot of things. And you can actually see, if you look back into some of my decluttering videos, like a lot of the clutter we had in our place was his clutter. And it was really overwhelming for me. But I tried to be understanding. I tried to think of it from his perspective, and he was like totally content living in like a cluttered, disorganized, and dirty way. So I tried to compromise to the best of my ability, but like I always felt like he wasn't compromising. I always felt like I was giving a lot and he wasn't giving me anything. The other thing we fought a lot about was spending time together. So one of my main love languages is quality time. And I just need to spend time with the people that I love. Otherwise, I don't feel loved and supported by them. We just didn't, we got to this point where we weren't spending any time together. He stopped texting me. He never wanted to go out on dates. Like we literally never went out on dates. I could probably name maybe 10 times in our 6-year-long relationship when we went out on dates. But then when we did go out on dates, it was a huge deal, like, oh my God, this is happening. There's obviously the drinking part. He continued to drink and just get wasted every single time he was drinking while we were together, knowing that made me very uncomfortable. And then to make matters worse, I went away to school. From the beginning, we knew that I was going to transfer. I was thinking about transferring locally to a school in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and then just like living at home and commuting. But I got a really good financial aid package from a school in Massachusetts, and we talked it over, and he was really supportive of me going to school in Massachusetts. And so we decided to do the long distance thing. That put so much stress on our relationship because we were already struggling a bit in the quality time area. And then for me to move away and for me to like never get any texts from him, we would call once a week at the most. Like I had to beg him for a call once a week. And then probably about a year into me being in Massachusetts, I find out from my landlord back at home that he had come home like blazing drunk one night and like knocked a whole bunch of stuff over in the house and like made a big commotion. And I called him about it and we were talking. We had this like crazy, so much crying, so much upset, like what is going on? You were so drunk, like how did this happen? And I find out that he had broken my moped. So like at the time living at home, I had a moped that I used to get around town because it was cheaper than a car and I needed some sort of vehicle. I was working a lot and I was going to school and it was a really great option for me. And when I eventually got a car, I let him use my moped, and he had gotten so drunk, he drove to a party or something on the moped, got too drunk to drive home. So he let a person drive him home, which like good choice. That's great. But that person had never driven a moped before, and that person crashed the moped, completely totaled it. And it was all tied into this, like, getting drunk, coming home, being sloppy, like, after promising that he was going to stop drinking. So it was really bad. And I remember thinking, like, this is our breaking point. We're not going to get past this. But he started crying. He was really upset. You know, he made me all of these promises that I wanted to believe because I really loved him and we were married and I wanted to make things work. And I know that relationships require sacrifice and compromise. And so I thought, okay, you know, he's willing to work it through. We will make it work. So another year passes. I'm at school and he's at home. Nothing changes, right? I mean, maybe he stops drinking. It's like unclear to me. It sounds like he isn't drinking anymore, but in a way, the drinking was making our relationship better because when he was drunk, he wasn't as anxious and depressed. And so he was like this happy-go-lucky guy that I grew to love and care for. And when he wasn't drinking, he was depressed and very isolated, wanted to spend all of his time alone, never wanted to talk. And so you add in that element of me being states away, like a 9 or 10 hour drive, and it was just awful. It was so bad. And I remember, oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional. I remember being at school and having such a hard time adjusting to being a new student on campus and being an older student who like was financially independent and not living with their parents and just needing emotional support from him and not getting anything in return. And I had to make myself happy, right? Like I couldn't depend on him for my happiness. I had to figure it out on my own. And so basically what I did is I lived my life like a single person. I mean, I didn't cheat on him. I acted like I was in a relationship in that sense, but I didn't count on calling him. I didn't count on like hearing from him. I loved going home because it meant spending time with him. But while I was at school, I just did my own thing. I made friends. I made new relationships. I tried. It was hard. That's a story for another video. I just figured it out. Like I focused on school. I got a job while I was in school. I focused on working. And I just put my head down and tried to graduate. Tried to do the best that I could. And, you know, one amazing thing about him is that he was always so supportive of me going to school. So in that sense, I got a lot of support from him and a lot of love for working hard and being a student and just, you know, trying to better myself educationally. So eventually it comes time to go to my graduation. Mind you, I've been at this new school for 2 years and he has never visited me one time. Like I'm always going back home to visit him. He's never coming to me. And it's graduation time and basically he doesn't want to commit to coming to watching me graduate. And this is a huge deal. Like I'm a first generation college student. Nobody in my family before me had ever graduated from college, and it was our first generation of kids that even attended college to begin with. So it wasn't like somebody went to college and then dropped out. And I, even though I'm not the oldest, I was the first person in my family to graduate. Like my older brothers, one of them is still in school, and another one graduated after me when he was much older. So for me to be the first one was a big deal, and it was something that he really needed to be there for. And he just would not commit. Over and over and over again, he would like hint at maybe coming and then change his mind and then not want to come. And it was so stressful for me. And at the last minute, he finally decided he was coming and he showed up. And the whole time it was like I was walking on eggshells. Like, is he going to be happy? Is he going to want to come? Like, am I going to do something that's going to upset him and he's going to change his mind at the last minute and decide not to show up to my graduation? He almost didn't come to my graduation, but he did come in the end. And from the outside, it looked like we were having a great time. It looked like nothing was wrong and we really loved each other. And we did love each other. But yeah, it was just stressful. It was very stressful. So we drove back home together, and I actually remember that drive as being like one of the best times we've ever had together, because we were stuck in the car with each other for 9 hours straight, and we like were talking and having conversations and just connecting like we hadn't in a really long time. Eventually we got home with all of my stuff and I moved back in, and we started to live together again, full time. At this point in time, I had applied for graduate school. So I decided to do my master's at Georgetown. And obviously that was local to DC, so not a huge deal. I was commuting into school, but we were living together. So it was, different than being apart. But the dynamic was very much the same, even though we were living together. Barely spending any time together. He's sleeping all the time. He's spending so much time on his phone, like always scrolling hours and hours and hours a day, just like listening to this newscast from his country and staying up to date on what was happening. And I actually really loved that about him. I loved how connected he was to his culture and where he was from and how important that was to him. But it was really invading our personal connection. Like, we had no time together. We never went out. I mean, I had all of these different events through school during my master's program. And so my master's program was in Latin American studies. So basically everybody there spoke Spanish. And one of the things that he used to say a lot is that he didn't want to come to things with me. He didn't want to like spend time with my family or go to an event or something like that because his English wasn't that good and it was embarrassing to him. But here I was with a bunch of other students who spoke Spanish, and he would not come. He just refused to talk to anyone. The summer before I started at Georgetown was actually the first time I'd ever left the country, so I decided to do a study abroad program before I started. That would help me graduate earlier, and that is when I moved to Colombia. And while I was in Colombia, things were especially bad. I was in a new country. I didn't know anybody. I was with some students from my program who just really didn't get me. We didn't get along. And my husband didn't care, like he just wasn't there for me. He wasn't supportive. We were stuck in the same old, like, talking once a week, if that. And I actually remember that we had gotten to a really good place. I was so excited because we were actually on a schedule. Like, once a week, we would actually have a conversation, and like not texting throughout the day or anything, but just having like one video chat per week. And to me, that felt like such a success. That was like this huge win because we had never been able to keep up with something like that before. So eventually I come back from Colombia, and same old. I'm going to Georgetown. I'm around other people that speak Spanish, so he doesn't have this excuse of like not knowing English, so he can't come to any events. No, he could like easily come to any of the events and speak Spanish with the people who are there. He's just like not present in our relationship. And like every few months we're having this talk where I'm like, I need more. I need to spend more time with you. Can we try just like going out on a date once a week? That's all I want. Just like one day a week where we are dedicating some time to being together. But no, no, it never happened. I mean, we went on like a couple of dates here or there, but like nothing really ever came of it. And when I say dates, I mean like we would go to the bank together, or we would go pick up food from a local restaurant together. Nothing is changing. So we had a lot of talks where I would be like, look, if something doesn't change, this is not going to work. We need to figure things out. Like, can we please go to therapy? And he would always say, no, I'm not going. Or he would say, yes, we can go, but like not for another 6 months or something. And this was a pattern with him. Like every time we would have a talk or get into an argument, I would be like, look, this thing happened. I want to talk about it. And he would just push it off. He would be like, okay, let's talk about it a month from now. And then a month would pass and I would bring it up and he would be like, okay, let's talk about it in a week. And like, he just kept pushing things off over and over and over again. And so it just felt like he was trying to avoid it. And that's what he was doing. He was trying to avoid conflict because he didn't like conflict. But that's just part of being in a relationship. Like people fight about things, there are disagreements. And if you don't talk and communicate about them, you're never going to solve them. And we never did. We actually never did. Time just kept going on where I was feeling really lonely, really ignored. I was trying to better the other parts of my life. So like my friendships and my hobbies and my school life and eventually my work life. But my relationship, my primary partnership, because I was married to someone, was just not working. There was no communication. We were never spending any time together. And what's really bad about this whole thing is that he blamed everything on me. Like I was being too clingy. I was asking for too much. Like he was trying his best, all of that stuff. And I really took that to heart. I really felt like a monster because I felt like I just needed so much. Like I felt like I was being so needy and I felt awful. Like here's this guy just trying to do his best and I am unappeasable. Like nothing is ever enough for me. And so this period of my life was very hard and very depressing because I was just so hard on myself. I read so many books. I watched all the YouTube videos, like how to make relationships better. It's just none of it worked. None of it worked. Fast forward, same things are happening, same patterns, right? And I graduate from Georgetown and I get my first job outside of my master's program. Not my first job ever, but my first job that's supposed to be working towards what I had studied for. He's super supportive. He was always supportive when it came to working and my education. And for that, I will forever be grateful. Right around the same time, we moved out of the shared bedroom with my, living in the house with roommates and stuff. And we got our own apartment. And for about a month, things were really great. We were working on the apartment together, picking out designs and the aesthetic and how we wanted it to look. And we were thinking about buying our own place. So we were actually going out and going to open houses and stuff. And we really started to bond over that and have a shared experience over that. That was fun. I mean, we were going out to open houses maybe once a week, once every other week for a couple of months. And that felt like a date to me because I was so starved of attention and love that anything I could get from him, literally anything, was incredible. I was so grateful for it and I was so happy for it. And then we settled into our new apartment and things went back to normal. He was always watching TV, always watching movies, always scrolling on his phone. And by now, because we were together more and I actually saw his habits in person, I was realizing that he was on social media a lot. And before I went vegan, I wasn't really big on social media. I basically never went on Facebook. I didn't have an Instagram. I didn't use Snapchat, nothing, Twitter, nothing. I didn't use it. But I had a Facebook account and We were friends and we were marked as in a relationship and stuff. But I just didn't know how much he was on Facebook. A couple of times I remember my friends saying things like, it was really weird, your husband reached out to me today, or like commented on my Instagram story, or like replied to my Snap, or whatever it's called. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't even know he had those social medias. Like I didn't even know he was on those apps. I had no idea. Like this whole time I thought he was just watching the news and like watching YouTube videos and stuff. Ugh, my nose is running because I'm crying. I'm a crybaby. So I was very taken aback. It felt like another secret to me, but like I'm not a very jealous person. So I was like, whatever. I just, think the best of other people and I try not to assume the worst. And this is hard. This is really hard to do. So after about 6 months of living in this new apartment, I have decided that I'm going to do some animal rights activism. And I went vegan when I was in Colombia. That was about 2 years earlier. And throughout that time, I had been like wanting to talk to him about veganism, right? Wanting to tell him about what I was learning about. And he just didn't want to hear it. He didn't care. He didn't want to listen. And this is something that is so important to me and who I am, that his like lack of understanding and care for something that I care so much about was just like really hurtful and painful. And it hurt for me to see him eating animals all the time. And I just tried to push it to the back of my mind. Like I tried to just ignore it and like live my life and let him live his life. But that wasn't my truth, that was very hard for me to do. And when I started doing activism, I really got passionate about veganism, and it made it even harder for me to come home and live with somebody who didn't care about animals. He would like literally eat a fish, like a full-blown fish with an eye and everything, and like the bones and all of that stuff. He would eat it. He would buy like so much meat, and he liked vegan food. I was there to tell him about stuff, but he just didn't want to hear it. Like he didn't care. And so he would like spend all of his time in the bedroom or like watching TV or whatever, and he would never leave the house. So it was around this time that I really started to get fed up. And it was because through activism, I found a community of like-minded people that got me, people that understood what I was talking about, people that cared about me. And I just realized that I had been living under a rock for basically the last 5 to 6 years, the entirety of our relationship, because I wasn't letting myself truly like be me, because I was in a relationship and he was never there. So I didn't want to like flirt with people. I'm a very like outgoing, loud, sociable person. And I really toned that down for him because it felt wrong for me to be happy and excited and outgoing in public situations when he wasn't there. Like, it just felt wrong to me. With activism, I just felt like I was in this safe place where I could just be myself, and I was meeting new people, and it was really fun, and I was going on all these trips with my activist friends. Like every weekend we were doing events and actions, and every other weekend we were driving somewhere. We had marches in Virginia, and we went down to North Carolina with my friend Sarah, and we're just doing all this stuff. So I was really keeping myself busy and really distracting myself from my relationship. And it was around then that I started to realize that I didn't need him anymore. My friend who I was spending a lot of time with at the time had been divorced. She was in an open relationship. She was kind of exploring things, and that really started to give me the courage to think, I could get divorced too. This doesn't have to be my life. At the same time, there were some guys in our activism community who were paying attention to me. Not in, I wasn't cheating on him or anything, but guys were reminding me that like I'm attractive, right? Because for a very long time, I had felt unattractive. I had felt stupid and just annoying and ugly and invaluable because I was starved for attention. Like, I can't even describe to you how bad it was. Like, we were never spending time together, never seeing each other. And even like the least bit of time that we did spend together was like overwhelming for him and just felt like too much. And it wasn't nearly enough for me. So I was just like over and over and over again, putting down my needs, not upholding my boundaries, not getting what I wanted out of our relationship so that he could be happy. And he still wasn't happy. But the thing is, like, even though all of that was going on and I felt so bad, I still really wanted to make it work. Like, I love this man. I cared about him so much. And I had this dream for our life and I wanted it to be true. I wanted us to have kids. I wanted to go visit him and his family and his country. I wanted to like see where he grew up. I wanted us to have a home. I loved him and I loved the idea of us being together, and I wanted it to be something that it wasn't. So I asked him again, like, let's go to therapy, please, let's go to therapy together. And finally he agreed. Like this, I was at my breaking point. Finally he agreed. And he said to me, okay, we can go to therapy, but I can't go not until next month. And this was in like November that we were talking about this. And he wanted to go like at the end of December or something. I think it was the end of November. He wanted to go the end of December. And I just remember thinking like, this is not gonna work. Like, how many times have you already told me over and over and over again that you were gonna do something, but like, just wait, just be patient. I'll do it later. And then you don't do it. And that's when I broke. So this whole time, I had gotten so desperate and he wouldn't go to therapy with me, so I started going by myself. And the therapist was like giving me ideas, telling me to basically just like give him everything he wanted, just like give up all of my needs, make him feel important. No matter what he wanted, just give it to him. Like, if he wants to be alone, give him space. If he wants more sex, give him more of that. If he wants to be fed, give him that. Like, just put all of my needs aside, just focus on him so he's comfortable enough to go to therapy. And I was doing that for months. And I had already been doing that for years. I was really, really trying, but I like went into hyperdrive for months. And that was part of the reason why I was able to focus so much on my activism, because he wanted space. Okay, I'm giving it to you. And then for him to just not care, for him to say no to therapy over and over and over again, for me to be trying so hard, and then I do like one last ditch effort and ask him again, and he agrees but like wants to wait. It just felt like this is not going to work. Like, I'm working so hard for something that he doesn't even want, and this is pointless. And so I got to this point where I was dejected, and I just thought like, no one is at fault here. I'm not at fault. You're not at fault. We are just not right for each other. Like, you are allowed to want to be in a relationship with somebody where you're not spending a lot of time with them, where you don't talk, where you live together but you're basically separated. And I'm allowed to be in a relationship where I feel cared for and my needs are fulfilled. And if we just can't give that to each other, that's okay. But it's not fair to either of us to stay in this relationship. And so I told him I want a divorce. I told him, like, let's just break up. Let's get separated. And immediately he was like, okay, yes, this is a great idea. Like, I'm so happy about this. This is going to be good. And I was so worried. I was really worried because I thought, I don't know, I thought he was going to be upset, but he wasn't. And at that point, like, I was resigned to the choice. I was sad about it, but I thought it was like the best decision for both of us. And our lease was up in May, so this is like December. He goes off on a trip with his family for the holidays. We're spending the holidays separate. Mind you, at this point, we haven't spent the holidays together since like the first year of our relationship. Like, he never went to holidays with my family anymore. He never bought me any presents for Christmas or holidays or anything. He never even really wished me happy birthday, like nothing. There was nothing special. There was no effort. There was no attention. It was just nothing. So we're still living together, but we are officially separated, and we are both okay with that. I made it clear in our first conversation that if we were going to separate, I wanted to be able to see other people. But we were still going to have sex with each other, and we were living together. Funnily enough, after we decided to separate, things started to get good between us. Like, we were having sex more often, smiling more. We were spending a little bit more time together. I mean, we never spent a lot of time together, so like anything was an improvement, but it was weird. It was interesting. I started seeing someone new, like just dating a guy. So we had this conversation about separating and seeing other people, and he was like, but if you are seeing someone else, I want to know. Just let me know about it. And I was like, all right, no problem. So I told him that I kissed this guy, and he flipped out. He absolutely lost it. And he was like, that's disgusting. You're a cheater. I can't even be around you right now. Like, the most awful stuff. He like wanted me to sleep on the couch. He wouldn't let me sleep in our bed. He like wouldn't even look at me. I was blown away. I was like, what are you talking about? We agreed we were going to see other people. Like, why are you freaking out? And I felt bad. Like, I felt really bad. He was obviously very clearly hurt by it. But, like, this is part of breaking up. When you break up with people, you have relationships with other people, you know? Like, I had actually had sex with this guy, but I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell my husband that because his reaction to us just kissing was so out of this world that I didn't want him to know. And yeah, I didn't want him to know. I didn't want to make him feel bad any worse than he already did, and that felt awful to me. So he up and left. He went to Miami, and he had been talking for a long time about how he wanted to move to Miami. Like, during our relationship, every time we had a fight, and I'd be like, I don't know if this is going to work, he'd be like, fine, let me go. I want to move to Miami with my friend. I'm going to work there. Like, I'll be fine. Or he would be like, I want to move to Miami and we can do long distance, and like, I'm just going to work there. And I was like, well, I can get a job in Miami. It's no problem. If you want to go there, let's go. And he was like, no, I want to be by myself. Like, he just wanted to be by himself all the time. He never wanted to be with me. So he goes to Miami, and like, I'm worried about him. I'm like, oh my God, he just picked up and left. Like, he went to Miami. That's weird. Like, are you okay? But also, you know, he's his own person. Like, he's an adult. He can do what he wants, whatever. In the meantime, I'm still going to my activism. I'm working. I'm having a really hard time. You know, I'm crying all the time. I feel awful about this whole situation. I feel like I'm giving up. I really want to make it work, but like, also he doesn't want to make it work, so whatever. And I'm just like grieving, and I'm still seeing this other guy. I'm just living my life, you know? I'm doing the best that I can. One day I'm at an event, an activism event, and I get a call from him, and he like never calls me, but he had been calling me more often during this situation. But it, you know, worries me when he calls me because we never talked on the phone. We had this history of never talking on the phone, so I always thought it was an emergency. So I picked up. And he tells me, he's like, hey, I just needed to let you know that I cheated on you, and now I feel like we're even, so everything is okay. Like, you know, you cheated, I cheated, now it's okay. And my jaw drops. Like, I literally cannot believe what I am hearing, because this man, for the entirety of our relationship, anytime we ever talked about cheating, because you do as a couple, you know, like you see other people cheating or you see somebody cheat in movies, he would always be like, you know, if you ever cheated on me, I would be done with you. That is disgusting to me. I can't stand cheaters. I hate cheaters. Like, I would never forgive you. That's disgusting. So I just never thought, like, ever in my wildest imaginations did I think that he would cheat on me. And we even had a cheating scare. Like, I came home from one of my trips. It was either my trip to Colombia or my trip to Mexico. And I came home and I was cleaning out our car, and I remember finding condoms in the car. And I was like, this is weird. Like, we haven't used condoms in years. You know, we're married. I have an IUD. Why are these here? And I talked to him about it, and he was like, oh, yeah, I just bought them for a friend. They're not mine. So we're talking on the phone, and he's explaining to me, and he had cheated on me twice. He cheated on me once very early on into our relationship, like during the first year, with somebody that we worked together with at the grocery store. And then he cheated on me again when I was away on a trip with a customer from the grocery store. And come to find out, like, he's letting all this information out, right? And he's telling me, like, the reason that I was so distant is because I cheated on you and I feel guilty about it and, like, all this stuff. And I'm feeling awful because I never cheated on him, right? We were separated when I hooked up with somebody else. But I'm just a compassionate and understanding person, and I understand why people cheat. And so if he had told me when he first did it, I probably would have forgiven him. But years and years and years of him blaming me and telling me I was needy and, like, too emotional, too sensitive, like expecting too much, asking too much, you know, all this stuff, just putting the blame on me. And for him to tell me, like, actually it's all my fault. This whole time I've been blaming you, gaslighting you, when in fact I was the cheater and I was the one who did this thing that you had no control over. I changed myself so much. I tried to be a completely different person for him to make him happy. I really, really tried, but it was never going to work because I never knew that he cheated. I didn't know. I didn't know that that was the reason that we were fighting all the time. I didn't know that was the reason that he didn't want to spend time with me. And so I was trying to fix a problem that I couldn't fix because I didn't even know that the problem existed. And that was the hardest part about the end of our relationship for me. The absolute hardest part. So I went back and forth for a long time about whether or not I wanted to get back together with him. I mean, I wanted to. I wanted to try to make it work, but I was not willing to give in to his demands, right? Like, if we were going to make it work, he was going to show up. He was going to go to therapy. He was going to eat a completely vegan diet. He was going to fulfill my needs. We were going to go out on dates once a week. Like, he was going to make an effort. And for a little bit, he did start making an effort. But we got to this point where he was like, I want to be exclusive with you and I want to make it work. And I was like, dude, you have done zero to prove to me that you are trustworthy. And I have this good thing going with this guy that I'm seeing right now. And I don't know if I want to end that for you. And I was like, how about this? How about we just take a break for a year and we reassess after a year? And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so we got to this point where, like, neither of us wanted to compromise, which was the same thing. He continued to gaslight me and tell me that I was a cheater and that we were equal and on equal terms because I had slept with someone after we had already separated. And it was just like constant him blaming me, him turning situations around on me, making me seem like the bad guy and me believing it. And eventually I just had to be like, no, I'm letting it go. I can't. And so I've spent the past almost a year now, I guess a little bit over a year. I mean, our divorce, like breakup, was in December, but we didn't really truly call it quits. We were like, there was lots of back and forth and like lots of discussion. We even went to therapy one time together for the next few months after that, up until probably like March maybe even April. I moved out of our apartment in May. And so I was still like hesitant and confused up until then. And it's been less than a year that I have been working on myself, going to therapy, like thinking about things, really trying to figure out what happened. And I just wanted to share my story with you because when I was going through the throes of this situation, one of the things that got me through was going on YouTube and listening to other people talk about divorce and breakups and their stories and what they did and their opinions. And I know it was really helpful to me. So if I can be helpful to even just one person by sharing my story and being vulnerable, that will be worth it to me. I have been married and now I'm separated, and I will soon be getting a divorce. And for any of you guys going through it right now who are like stuck in that point where you're like sobbing all the time, crying every day, absolutely just heartbroken, I feel for you so much. I know that feeling absolutely sucks. And I'm sorry you're going through it, and you will get through it. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope on the other side. And I know that when you're in it, it feels like it's never going to end, but it will. You're going to be okay. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your breakup, divorce stories in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.